Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why is the middle class shrinking? Why are people facing an affordability crisis while marginalized individuals called informals grow in numbers? Join me as I travel the world, speaking with people living in invisibility, the leaders working to solve it, and uncovering the hard truths shaping our economy and daily reality.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC and stations throughout these United States. Thank you so much for joining. Happy Easter, everyone. A happy and holy Easter. By the way, I want to, before our show is over, I want to get maybe one or two Easter songs on, if we could, Mr. Producer. There's a very famous Judy Garland song that celebrates Easter, so we got to do that because this is a happy and holy day weekend for America. Lot to talk about. I want to start with. By the way, we're on all hour, and we've got a great show. We're going to talk with Tom Powell, is one of the top energy experts, to tell us what's going on in the Middle East. We're going to talk to my friend Bob Livingston, who was the former Appropriations Committee chairman, about what's going on in Congress. And then in our second hour, we'll be talking John Catsimatidis, and we'll be talking to one of the top economists in the country, E.J. Antoni. So we've got a power-packed show. Thank you so much for joining on an Easter weekend. So I'm going to just get right down to it. First of all, on the jobs report that came out yesterday, what a relief that was. We had 170,000 or so jobs created in the month of March, even though the oil price spiked from 55 to over $100 a barrel. You know, anytime the oil price goes up, it's a tax on the American consumer. None of us like paying more at the gas pump. We were down to about $2.89 a gallon before we went into the Iran conflict, and now many people are paying $4 to $4.50 or more. If you're out on the West Coast, you may be paying as much as $5 or $6 a gallon. By the way, what is wrong with California? I mean, really, how sick are these people? They have all of these policies that raise the price of energy so high that you're paying about $1.25 to $1.50 more a gallon in California than you are in the rest of the country. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But my point is, even with the spike in gas prices, which has been harmful to the economy, there's no question about it. We got to get the Straits of Hormuz open, Mr. President. Please do that as quickly and efficiently as possible so we can exit the Middle East victoriously. The world is going to be a safer, more prosperous, and more peaceful place. But I think everyone wants this to get over with as quickly as possible and end all the killing. And by the way, the killing is being done by the evil Iranian regime over there. And that's going to happen. I'm not a military expert by any means. I'm an economist, but I'm going to tell you, I think in 2 or 3 months, we will see the gas price down back to around $3 a gallon, which would be a very happy occasion. So stick with the program. Now, what's interesting about that jobs bill, the jobs report that just came out, was what it reported is we almost had 200,000 private sector jobs created. We lost government jobs, which is a good thing. Drain the swamp. We don't want more and more government employees. Do you know in America today, when Biden left office, there were almost 3 million federal government employees? 3 million? Come on. We could do the job of government with half that number. Now, the good news is Trump has so far reduced the federal workforce by about 300,000, gave a lot of people early retirement and so on. And a lot of people took advantage of that. And we've just shrunk the government, and that's a good thing. I think government is big, too flabby, too fat. So that was a surprise. It was a welcome surprise that we saw jobs created. It shows the resilience of the American economy and American businesses, that even with these higher energy prices, we were able to see jobs created in the country. Now, whether we see the same numbers in April, which just began, I can't tell you, but I do like the fact that we were able to weather the storm at least in March. Second point I wanted to bring up. the tax cuts. If you get the Unleash Prosperity hotline, and I know most of you do, but if you're not getting it, go to unleashprosperity.com, sign up. It is absolutely free. It costs you nothing, folks. It's not $500, not $1,000. It's absolutely free. And we will send you the hotline every morning, and you will then read it, and you will be the smartest person in the room when economics and politics comes up. By the way, you can read this in 5 or 10 minutes every morning. It's a great briefing. A lot of times it's just a picture or a photograph of what's going on in the U.S. economy throughout these 50 states. Well, one of the points we made in the hotline this week, for those who do not get it, is, well, 2 points that are very important relative to taxes. Number one, the share of taxes went up. It did not go down for high-income people. So this idea that this was some kind of tax cuts for the rich when the share of taxes paid by the rich actually went up makes no sense. It's mathematically impossible to say this was a tax cut for rich people when actually the share of taxes paid by middle class and lower income people went down and rich paid more taxes, partly because the economy did better. But the other point to make about this is that a lot of people are not aware of. I know most of you are aware of this because you're a smart person, because you're listening to the show. So this is a self-selected audience of people who get economics and get politics and understand what's happening in America. But if you tell people, by the way, that Trump tax cut, which by the way, I was on a CNN interview the other night, and with a very, very liberal congresswoman from the state of Washington, and she was saying, that big ugly bill that hurt the middle class, helped the poor. I said, wait a minute. I said, Congresswoman, you voted against that bill, and it provided the average family with a $2,000 tax cut. You know what? You would rather have the middle class paying $2,000 more in taxes? And she just, fumbled around. She didn't have much to say about that because the Democrats just all read out of the same script. They don't even know what, I shouldn't say all of them, but many of the electorate, Democrats just, they get their talking points from the Democratic National Committee and they just read them. And then when someone actually confronts them with the fact, they just do a blah, 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 blah. They don't know how to respond to that kind of thing. By the way, I have to appreciate CNN. I do mostly Fox News, but every once in a while I'll go on CNN, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide the other side. And I'm surprised at how many of these liberal commentators, they've never even been confronted with their litany of talking points and half-truths, and in some cases lies that they tell the American people. But the average American is getting family is getting a $2,000 reduction this year on their taxes, especially if you get tips, if you get overtime, if you get Social Security. All of those things have reduced your tax burden. That's good news. Why isn't the media reporting it? Because they don't want to, because they hate Trump. A couple of other quick points I want to make before we take our pick. I'm just going to throw out a teaser because I'm going to talk a lot about this throughout the next couple of hours. You may have seen the Supreme Court case, where the Supreme Court basically held some of these, social media platforms responsible for the youth and the problem with the youth in America. And sometimes there are suicides and other things. Now, by the way, I hate video games. I hate a lot of this social media stuff. I think it's rotten. I think it is addictive. I wrote a column on this 20 years ago before it was even cool, saying the big addiction in America, young people, is not marijuana. It's not cocaine, although those are big problems, or even alcohol. It's video games. And by the way, I've even been addicted to video games. So, I know that these things can be very addictive, but I don't think it's fair to hold the video game companies responsible for this. Whatever happened to parents? Whatever happened to teachers? What happened to peers? I mean, if your kid is playing video games, don't blame the video game company. Smash the computer, take away their cell phone, and get them off the thing. I'm tired of everybody, parents especially, pointing to someone else if your kid is misbehaving. So if your kid is addicted to video games, take their cell phone. I got mine standing and throw it in the lake and say, no more cell phone for you because of your addiction, but don't blame the company. It's like, remember now look, I'm not an apologist for the tobacco companies, but the cigarette just didn't pop into people's mouth and people knew that they were addictive. So let's have some self-responsibility. Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we will be talking energy policy. I'm going to give you the answer of when energy prices and gas prices are going to start to fall at the pump. This is the More Money Show on stations all around the country.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I hope everyone is going to have a happy and holy Easter. And so we are here, though, today to talk about politics and the economy and energy policy. And I was thinking, who is the smartest guy I know on energy policy, other than myself, of course, but this guy knows about 3 times more on energy than I do. I'm talking about Tom Pyle. Tom's been a regular on this show. He runs a group called the Institute for Energy Research, also the American Energy Alliance. We work almost, we work in the same office because our Unleashed Prosperity leases space from Institute of Energy Research, so we see each other every day. Tom, thanks for joining.
Thank you, and happy Easter, Steve.
Happy Easter. Okay, so I've got a lot to cover with you, Tom, and we want to talk, obviously, energy policy. And I'm going to start, if I may, Tom, with a question that I guess I get asked about 5 times a day. I'm sure you probably do, too, more than that. And I try to explain this to people. Maybe I don't explain it very well, but here is the question, Tom. So people say to me, well, Steve Moore, we're producing more energy than ever before, oil and gas in the United States, thanks to efforts, your group and our group and others, drill, baby, drill. So we are at an all-time high with American oil and gas production. And we are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I have seen the statistic that suggests that the United States is actually a net exporter of oil and gas. In other words, we produce more than we can consume in this country. And you can correct me if I'm wrong about that as well. And so the question, if I'm right about those 2 things, then the obvious question that people are scratching their head wondering is, if we're producing all this oil and gas and we're self-sufficient, why is it that when the price of the gas out of the Middle East goes up, that people are paying more here at home?
Couple reasons, Steve. The first is that, of course, while we produce a lot and our production has made us safer and stronger than ever,
yes,
we have a refinery complex that is tooled specifically to take oil that we don't produce here in the United States for the most part. Our refineries were built in the 70s. And at the time, we were importing most of our oil
Tom, hold on. Tom, hold on.
Venezuela
Tom,
and then Canada.
Tom, hold on 1 second. I bet a lot of our listeners don't even know what a refinery. What does a refinery do?
The refinery is what takes that crude oil and turns it into multiple products, fertilizer,
including gasoline.
Natural gas does fertilizer, but gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, home heating oil, asphalt for our roads.
Got it.
Those refineries are basically the cookbook for oil.
Okay. So we need them.
So the issue there is we have to, we need them, and we still have to import oil from other places, even though we're the largest producer. Simply because those refineries don't take that oil.
Okay. So that would explain why the price is high now?
Well, it explains why just because we produce it doesn't mean we're not isolated from the global price of oil, and that's the issue. Yeah.
Okay. So Tom,
if a global commodity, and it's
right. So if we produce, so one of the problems, and you've written about this, I've written about it, is do we need more refineries in this country? Is that right?
We do. Luckily, we've got a new one coming in Texas, and that refinery is going to produce 100% American oil, gasoline, and other products from American oil. And that's where the direction that we need to head is. We need to build new refineries, and we need to have them take our oil so that we don't have to worry as much about the global price.
And so what has been the holdup? Why have we not produced? Why have we not built more refineries?
Well, it's the same reason we don't build pipelines, we don't build bridges, we don't build roads. We have an infrastructure problem in this country because of bureaucracy, because of permitting, because of federal and state, and a lot of NIMBY, that not in my backyard stuff that we've become accustomed to here.
And also the climate change people don't want to build refineries, right?
Oh, absolutely. The climate change people don't want us to do anything.
Right. They don't want pipelines. They don't want refineries. They don't want LNG terminals. By the way, how are we doing on pipelines?
Much better, thanks to President Trump. We've cleared a lot of the backlog from the Biden era, and they are building out the infrastructure now. But the problem with that, too, is a lot of states block them, too. New York, for example, blocks pipelines to the Boston area, Massachusetts, New England states. And so we have to import natural gas, for example, when we have all this natural gas in Pennsylvania, but New York won't let it go through their state. So even if we fix the problems at the federal level, we still have blue state governors who are still, singing the climate hymnal.
So, Tom, we have a lot of listeners. We're on nationally, as you know, and we have a lot of listeners in Southern and Northern California. Why are Californians paying $1.25 to $1.50 more for gas than people around the rest of the country?
Well, they have for about the last 10 or 15 years. They have literally done it to themselves, Steve. They've passed all these ridiculous laws and requirements to make the fuel so specialized in California that it becomes more expensive. The other thing that they've done is they've stopped drilling in their own state, and they import, in fact, most of their crude from the Middle East. And so they're the ones who are, in the United States at least, impacted the most by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. So, Tom, we have to take a quick break. Can I hold you over for another segment?
You bet.
Okay, folks, this is the More Money Show. That's Tom Pyle, one of the experts on energy policy in America, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
How about that one, folks? Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland in the Easter Parade. That's my favorite Easter song. I hope you're having a wonderful Easter weekend. I hope the sun is shining wherever you are on this Saturday before Easter. I hope you're going to have a wonderful Easter tomorrow. So I want to get back to Tom Pyle. Tom Pyle is an expert on energy policy. We were having a discussion with him earlier before the break, and I held him over because he's just got so much information about what's going on in the energy world. Tom, thanks for holding over. Now let's get to the future. I've been saying, Tom, that I believe that when the Straits of Hormuz are open, and hopefully that will be very soon. I'm not a military expert, but it looks like things are going well in that area in terms of getting that Straits of Hormuz open. When that happens, Tom, how much will the gas price fall in the U.S. and how fast will it happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. And much like the good jobs report we saw, the futures markets are actually telling us that they're anticipating an end to the closure of the strait. Futures prices for oil in June is trading almost $13 or $14 cheaper than for May, which is a good sign. And I think what you're going to see is, I think you'll see the gas prices will plateau here. And I know it's people are hurting, obviously, but I think it's temporary. As these prices, as these futures markets bear out, I think that they're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel here on the strait.
And so I've been saying, Tom, that I think we could, in about 3 months' time or so, maybe I'm overly ambitious here, that we could see the gas price right back down close to where it was before, where people were paying, $3 or so a gallon nationally.
Yeah, it won't happen overnight, Steve. These things take time, as you know, but this is simply a temporary result of this war and this conflict, and prices will resume their downward trajectory just like they were prior to the invasion.
A couple of weeks ago, the infamous biologist Paul Ehrlich died, and you know that Paul Ehrlich was the author of this group called this very, very famous book, sold millions of copies, called The Population Bomb. And he predicted, that book I think was written in the late 1960s, around 1968 or so. And he predicted in that book that the world was going to run out of energy. Are we running out of energy?
No. In fact, we've done this for a long time, as you know, and in the history of estimating our oil and gas reserves in this country and around the world, they've never been revised downward.
Wow.
We always find more, Steve. And the interesting thing is just all the damage that way of thinking has caused over the years. This whole myth of scarcity has resulted in a lot of bad policy, which, thankfully President Trump with his energy dominance agenda is working to unwind.
So I have two final questions for you, and I think they're both important. I want to start with one, which is that in the 1970s, when we saw the biggest spike in energy price in real terms in the last 75 years or so, the government did all these things like windfall profits taxes and other, crazy policies like odd even license plates and so on to fill up your tank. Are we headed back to those policies, and did they work?
Oh, no, they didn't work at all. In fact, they made it worse. They made it worse, yeah. Yep. The best policy is to let these markets work, let them flourish, and let us produce. As you mentioned in the first segment, we're the number one producer of oil in the world. That's only a recent phenomenon thanks to our ability to produce those resources through new technology and innovation. And, I would have been unthinkable a generation ago to even contemplate taking Iran's ability to produce nuclear weapons off the table. So, prices are high now, but a lot of this, is being driven by the fact that we can't have a nuclear Iran, and so hopefully we'll get through this in the short run here and get the economy cooking again.
In our last minute and a half, I'm talking to Tom Pyle, who is the president and CEO of the Energy Institute Research. Tom, a nuclear power, I think we're all in favor of nuclear power, but I'm a little worried, and look, I think nuclear power is a great way to get energy, but I'm a little worried that the government seems to want to throw all these subsidies to the nuclear power industry now, and I worry that could ruin the industry. I mean, why can't we produce nuclear power without all these federal subsidies?
We can, Steve. I think old habits die hard, and unfortunately, this is a bipartisan problem.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that the government has to get involved in these things, and they end up creating dependencies and distort markets.
Well, Tom, it didn't work for solar and wind power.
Heck no.
Yeah, right. So I'm just worried about that.
It is a little bit of a. Yeah, it's a little bit of a blight here on the overall agenda of the administration. I just don't think we should be subsidizing any form of energy.
Yeah, I think I want to end on that note, Tom, because it's such an important one, that we should let the free market work in energy, right, Tom? It works in every other industry. Why not energy?
100%. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you coming on. That's Tom Pyle. He is one of the world's experts on energy policy. And I always say, folks, I'm not one of the smartest radio talk show hosts in the world, but I get some of the smartest guests on, and also I have the smartest listeners. So we will be right back, folks. I hope you are having a wonderful Easter weekend. Easter bonnet, I love it. And we'll be back in about 1 minute.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful Easter weekend. My next guest, by the way, is a longtime friend and someone who I so greatly admire for his great service to our country. I'm talking about Congressman Bob Livingston, former Congressman Bob Livingston from the great state of Louisiana, who I say this, and he's always saying, I didn't do it myself, but this is the guy who really is so responsible for those only balanced budgets we've had in Washington over the last 50 years came when Bob Livingston was running the Appropriations Committee in the House. And as you know, they are the ones who control the spending. And he held the spending down. And in those Clinton years, we actually did have balanced budgets. So first of all, Bob, I just want to salute you for your great service to our country.
Well, thank you very much for that great introduction, Steve. But I don't know that I deserve all the credit. Actually, there are quite a lot of other people, including Newt Gingrich and Ted Stevens and others, who pitched in. So it was a great effort, and I think it's one that we could all be very proud of.
Well, you should be especially, and obviously Newt Gingrich and Dick Armey and others. And by the way, Bill Clinton now also deserves a big part of the credit for that as well. So, but that's not why I wanted you on, Bob, because we talked about that a few weeks ago when you were on the show, but we never really got to your great new book, called The Rainbow Chaser. And there's so many reasons this book is important, but one of the themes of the book is something that is very troubling to me, Bob Livingston, and that is the outrageous prosecutorial misconduct in our justice system today. I know so many people who have been put in jail or, in some cases for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, for offenses that were it was a political, mistrial essentially that happened where you've got, in my opinion, you've got prosecutors who are putting their political enemies in jail. It is disgusting. It's outrageous. It happened to you. Well, you didn't go to jail, but they'll bankrupt you if they charge you at the thing. So tell people about your story because it's happened way too often in our justice system.
Thanks, Steve. The fact is, I was a prosecutor for 6 years before I went to Congress. And I think that law and order demands that conscientious prosecutors do their job, yes. Along with conscientious investigators, FBI agents, policemen, and so forth. If they do it right, they develop probable cause, they find a crime, they find out who did the crime, they prosecute the people that did the crime. That's within the justice system that this pre-democracy of ours demands. But it's an incredible amount of authority vested in the hands of crooked cops or crooked prosecutors, people who push cases against innocent people for reasons that, for no reasons, just simply because they don't like them or because they want to make targets out of them. And if they're misused, if that process is misused, it becomes tyrannical. And it's an abusive process, but more importantly, as you pointed out, it just destroys the lives of the people who are victims of that kind of activity.
Well, Bob, tell people about your particular case because it just I could fill this show with people who have stories of how prosecutors have come after people because of their political views. I don't care if it's liberal view or conservative view, but politics should not be part of our justice system.
Exactly. And as a former prosecutor, the last thing in the world I expected was that it would be aimed at me. I did a couple of years in the United States Navy. I did 6 years as a criminal prosecutor in all state, local, federal, and I did 22 years in Congress. Then I formed a good business in Washington, D.C., a lobbying business, and we complied with every degree of the law possible. But in essence, when the Biden administration came into office, they went after Republicans of all forms. Any Republican who of note was declared an enemy of the Justice Department under Garland, under the Attorney General there. And he used a guy by the name of Jack Smith, who went after tons of innocent people, using the Beria crime. Stalin's investigator, Levente Beria, who said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. In effect, they just went after people because of who they were, not because of what they did. And that's exactly what they did.
What did they accuse you of?
They brought a search warrant to me for me and my firm, alleging that I had violated the terms of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is called FARA. And they said essentially that I had violated and not sufficiently reported Well, Steve, I want to tell you, in 28 years, we religiously reported everything all the time. We represented at one point in 2018 a lady who ran against Zelensky of Ukraine for president of Ukraine, Yulia Tymoshenko. We represented her only for 10 months, and we reported virtually everything under the law as we were required to do, and we told her that we were going to have to do that.
Oh, my
Coincidentally, there was a Democrat firm in Washington, D.C. that represented her for 4 years. They didn't report anything. Guess who was investigated?
Right.
We were. We were investigated, and they weren't. And they came at us. It cost me 20 months of grief, a hell of a lot of money for very expensive lawyers. And when we finally find an 88-page brief, the lawyers convinced the Justice Department that they didn't have a case, and then they didn't do anything until the statute of limitations ran out. They said, well, never mind. But it still cost me all of that problem. Other people haven't been so lucky. We weren't charged.
Right.
But they did come at me, and just because they came at me, it cost it cost me a hell of a lot of my business.
Well, Bob, I know exactly what you're talking about because I have so many other colleagues and friends who've gone through the same, prosecutions that you have, and actually persecution is a better word than prosecution. And what my sense of this, and by the way, I had a somewhat similar case involving myself, but it was more of an IRS tax issue. But the IRS claimed that my wife and I owed, I don't know, about $150,000 in taxes. We had no idea how they came up with that money and that dollar amount. They never even told us. They just said, you owe us this money, pay up. And we had a tax accountant, 2 tax accountants. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And the tax accountant, I'm not joking, Bob. The tax accountant said, look, we've redone your taxes. We actually think the IRS owes you some money. But what the tax accountant said is just pay the money because it's going to cost you so much to contest this with the IRS. It's going to cost you more money. And so they use the fact that we as individuals have limited budgets, but the government has an unlimited budget to go after you.
Well, they really do. And if they charge somebody, and no matter how tough they make it, they can make you go to trial in a state outside of your own. You have to pay witnesses, you have to pay costs, you have to pay the lawyers, you pay this and that. They literally bankrupt you before you can prove your innocence. In this country, we're told that you're innocent until proven guilty. But when you up against the United States government, they can come at you and they ignore that rule because all they have to do is pick you out of a crowd, go after you, and you've got to pay money. And if you can't pay the money, like some of those people in the January 6th deal, they couldn't pay the money, so they pled guilty to felonies that they weren't even guilty of.
It's so frightening because, folks, the reason I wanted Bob, this could happen to any of us. It's happened to me. It's happened to Bob Livingston. I have a guy I've been fighting for his case for now 2 years named Caleb Bailey, who literally is in jail for 12 years and his crime was being a Trump delegate. And I'm not exaggerating. They raided his home. They found, you have 3 unregistered guns. They put him in jail. And, this is so troubling to me, Bob, because we need a justice system that is fair and equitable. What they've done to you and others is cruel. It is not a balanced system. And the problem is it's become so political. I mean, can you imagine going, if I were charged with a crime as a Trump person going in front of a jury in Washington, D.C., I would have no chance.
That's not far-fetched at all, Steve. My book, The Rainbow Chaser, has a bunch of examples, maybe 15 or 20 examples of people who that happened to exactly. In some cases, they went all the way to the trial. Ted Stevens, I mentioned earlier, was tried and convicted 3 weeks before his election. He lost his election, and 2 months later, the judge threw the whole case out, saying the prosecutors had fudged on the case. And it didn't matter. After a generation of helping Alaska and representing this country nobly and ably, the poor guy lost his election, and for no reason. He couldn't put it all pieces back together. Plus, it cost him a fortune in attorney's fees.
Well, by the way, you may recall the case in the early 1980s of Ray Donovan, who was Ronald Reagan's labor secretary, who was accused of a crime. And, of course, he was totally exonerated, but he had to resign his position. And he very famously said, Bob, okay, now how do I get my reputation back? Because your reputation is destroyed by these people.
It is indeed. In fact, there was a similar case against Ronald Reagan's Secretary of EPA, whose name escapes me this minute, but right. He was charged with 29 felony charges about 6 years after he left the Reagan cabinet, and in 1 year it cost him a fortune. But he convinced them that he wasn't guilty of any of the felonies, and just to get them off the back, he pled guilty to one misdemeanor. Yeah. Because he couldn't afford them again any longer, and the attorney's fees were bankrupting him, and he had no choice.
So, Bob, we just have one or two minutes left. I'm talking to Bob Livingston, former chairman of the Appropriations Committee, who was one of the men responsible for our balanced budgets when we had them. My last question is, Bob, what do we do about this? How do we fight back?
Well, we expose it, and that's what my book is about, the Rainbow Chaser, and I hope people will read it. I'm hoping that the Congress will pass a law that says when a prosecutor or an investigator makes a case against an individual because of who he is and not what he did, without probable cause or evidence, that prosecutor or investigator can be charged with a crime civilly or criminally, and can actually go to prison for it, because they ruin people's lives. They have that kind of power, and they have to be responsible.
It's just very scary. And if you're someone who's a Trump supporter, as I am, you're worried that if the Democrats take over, they're coming after us, folks. They're coming after us because we love Donald Trump. And I think that's outrageous. It's not justice. It's injustice. Bob Livingston, thanks so much for coming on the show. The book is The Rainbow Chaser. You can get it on Amazon. And folks, this is The More Money Show. We will be back in 2 minutes.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yes, folks, that is one of the More Money Show theme songs, Can't Buy Me Love. Of course, the other one is also a Beatles song called Money. And the age-old question, of course, is, can money buy you love? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. But I do know I love Easter weekend. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful, and holy and happy Easter. And don't forget to go to church tomorrow if you are Catholic or a Christian. So we were talking at the end of the last hour. I was talking to my friend Bob Livingston, who a former congressman who just got the book thrown at him. He was essentially put through the ringer by the justice system because of his political views. And folks, I'm an economist. I try to stick to the economy, what I know, but I've got to tell you what is going on in this country with respect to the way, especially the left, goes after their political enemies and puts them in jail is scary. It's like we're a banana republic when they take charge. And look, Donald Trump has quite correctly pardoned thousands of innocent people, thousands of them, thank God. And I know so many people who were put in jail in really cruel conditions. I had a friend who was put in basically solitary confinement in a dark cell with no windows for 3 or 4 days. That's just cruel and unusual. And they are doing this over and over again because of prosecutorial misconduct. And I'm tough on crime, folks. I do want criminals to go in jail, but the fact that the justice system is not balanced any longer, and it scares me because if the Republicans lose the election in 2028 and we get a Democratic president like a Gavin Newsom, and that could easily happen, the pendulum swings back and forth politically, I guarantee you they are going to come after people who serve for Trump. I know they will. That's what they did when Biden was president. They will do it again. It scares me. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail because I'm a supporter of Donald Trump. And so we got to do something about our justice system. I feel so passionately about that because it's unfair. I know people who are innocent, who their only crime was to have served for Donald Trump or to support it, have been publicly supportive of him, and they're now in jail. That should never happen in America. Maybe in a third world banana republic, but not in these United States. So I appreciate, that's why I had Bob Livingston on, because I wanted him to tell a story. He was served our country admirably in the military. He was, did he say he was in the Navy or Marines?
He was in the Navy.
Navy. He served in Congress honorably for 20 years, and they threw the book at him. And by the way, the government has unlimited resources when they come after you, whether it is a prosecutor or it's the IRS. The whole system is so damn unfair. It makes me angry. We got to clean this mess up in Washington. And Trump is doing the best he can. And by the way, they'll try to put Trump in jail. I guarantee you, when Trump's term is up, and there's a new president in January 2029, if it is a Democrat, you heard it first here on the More Money Show, they will try to put him in jail. I guarantee you they will. They hate him that much, and they hate anyone who supports Trump. And look, I'm a conservative. I'm a free market guy. I'm not a Democrat, but I would not use the power of government to go after my political enemies in that way. But they will. They will. That's what the Democrats do. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. I'm glad I got that off my chest, folks. And by the way, I will be taking questions at the end of the show. If you have thoughts about this, I'd love to hear from you. 1-800-848-9222 is the More Money hotline. 1-800-848-9222. In the meantime, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be on with one of the top economists in the country, EJ and Tony, who's going to tell us what is going on with the new jobs report and what to expect in the weeks and months ahead. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. Hope you're having a wonderful Easter weekend. I hope you'll have a happy and holy Easter. My next guest is E.J. Antoni, who is a colleague of mine. He is the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. He is an expert on monetary policy, on fiscal policy, on all things economics. So, E.J., thanks so much for joining, and happy Easter.
Oh, Steve, happy Easter to you, too, and thanks for having me.
So a lot I want to cover with you, EJ, today. Let's just start with the jobs report. It was a good report, obviously, especially the payroll survey. There's two surveys, as you know, and one of them had a very good number, the other one not so good. What do you make right now of the situation with jobs in America? Given the fact that we have $100 a barrel oil, obviously that's like a tax on the U.S. economy. What's your outlook?
Steve, great question. In the same way that I thought the previous jobs report was not quite as bad as the headline appeared, I think this one is not quite as good as the headline appeared.
Right.
That's not, it's not to say it was terrible or anything like that, but just like the previous one, it's a mixed bag. And you mentioned the two different surveys. Yes, we did have a real nice number in terms of the establishment survey, the survey of businesses, adding a lot of jobs. But when we look at the survey of households, we saw that fewer people were employed, particularly native-born Americans actually went down year over year, which is not something we want to see. So, again, mixed bag overall. Now, to your point on these high energy prices functioning like a tax, that's exactly right. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that framing, Steve. And so when you have this kind of doubling of energy prices, you got to think of that as a sharp increase in taxation, and that means slower growth and slower job creation as well in the year ahead.
And that means, of course, if we can get that gas price back down to remember before this, the gas price was as low as it had been in, 40 years, then we would see a resumption of growth. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think that's spot on, Steve. And so that's why it's so imperative that they get this conflict with Iran wrapped up as soon as possible, that the Strait is reopened as soon as possible, get that oil flowing again, and not just oil, but fertilizer too. I don't think people realize how much of a fertilizer crisis we have right now, Steve, because with oil, you see that immediately when you go to the pump to fill up. But with fertilizer, I mean, that's affecting food prices 3, 4, 5 months from now. So you don't feel it yet. You don't feel it yet, but the fertilizer crisis is very real.
And I didn't realize until a few weeks ago when the fertilizer people, got in touch with me so I didn't realize that a lot of our fertilizer does come through the Strait of Hormuz. And so it's been disrupted. And as you said, you can't grow crops without fertilizer, right? You don't have to be a genius to understand that. I wanted to ask you a question about what you were mentioning, the decline in the labor force. And this is something that is worrisome to me, EJ, because you can't have growth. You need, as you know, you need two things for growth. You need more productivity and you need more workers. And so we are, and I have to say I'm a little bit flummoxed by this myself. Part of the decline in the labor force that we're seeing is just demographic. I just turned 66. I'm a baby boomer. Baby boomers are retiring at the pace of about 11,000 per day on average, whereas only about 8,000 young Americans are joining the workforce. So some of this is just an adjustment because the baby boomers are retiring. But how do you see it? I mean, how do we grow if we don't have enough workers?
Well, you really can't, Steve. It's such a great point. The most valuable piece of capital in any economy is human capital.
Right, of course.
And so when we've had the kinds of changes we've seen with immigration policy, you've reduced the incoming workers that way. And I'm not just talking about illegal immigration. I'm even talking about legal immigration. You're reducing it that way. You're reducing it via the demographic change that you're talking about. And the fact that just too many young people today, sadly, are not having kids. And there's a whole host of different reasons for that, but that's still the reality of the situation. So we need to talk about it. And when we look at, the unemployment rate in this last report, Steve, yes, it's good to see the unemployment rate going down, provided it's because people are moving out of unemployment and moving into employment. Unfortunately, though, that's actually not what happened. The number of people employed fell. It was just that so many people left the labor force that they were no longer counted as unemployed, right? And so it's not just a matter of changing the top of the fraction, but you can also change the bottom of the fraction to change the overall figure there as well. And that's what's going on here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And then you mentioned something important, which is legal immigration. I'm of the view, given the fact that, by the way, this phenomenon that EJ and Tony and I are talking about of a declining number of births in the U.S., this is happening all over the Western world. Virtually every country, Japan, Korea, the Europeans, Canada, are seeing the same thing. And so we have a birth dearth in the world. The only region in the world where births are actually still high is in Africa. And so we do have an advantage, though, because we can import immigrants from the rest of the world in a way that most other countries cannot do. I think, and by the way, I'm talking about legal immigration here, folks. People who come in legally with a visa. I think we need them.
Yeah, Steve, and the evidence bears that out. If you look at, for example, we have a lot of specialty jobs in a modern economy, right? Everything has become incredibly specialized. The idea that you can just become a doctor and be a general practitioner, that's increasingly going by the wayside because, and look, it's not even just a matter of I'm going to specialize and be a cardiologist. What kind of cardiologist, right?
Right.
There's even pediatric cardiology today. It's amazing. And as everything, not just medicine, as everything becomes increasingly specialized, you're going to need a lot more specialists. And that's why when we talk about bringing the best and the brightest people into this economy, you really do need a whole host of different skill sets.
Now, a couple things related to that, EJ. I'm talking to EJ Antoni, who's the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, also works with me at Unleash Prosperity. couple of points on this. Number one, we are entering a robotics age. I'm on the board of a company called Lightspeed. I know a lot of our listeners know about this because I talk about it a lot. And Lightspeed is we build houses with robots. And so that is going to lower the price of housing considerably, but it put a dent in the construction industry. So my point is robots will be doing a lot of the work that human beings do now. How does that play into all of this?
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to basically eliminate some jobs, but create others. This is exactly what happened when things like the diesel engine became miniaturized at the time into what today we consider a normal size engine, and you could put it into a tractor. And that meant that you no longer needed this big hulking steam tractor that was very inefficient and was very thirsty in terms of not only water but fuel. And you had a smaller, more compact, more efficient product. And all of a sudden, what happened to farmers? Now you didn't need anywhere near as many farmers to farm the same amount of land. So it reduced the number of farming jobs while simultaneously increasing the amount of food available. And people who were previously farming actually were able to go get jobs doing other things, including doing things like driving a taxi, which was a much less backbreaking work than being a farmer. So again, it's going to eliminate some jobs, absolutely. But people have to remember, whenever we have these technological advancements, it always creates more jobs than it eliminates.
Yeah, I always tell the story that, a little over 100 years ago, about 25 out of 30, 100 out of every 100 Americans were working in agriculture, and now about 2 out of 100 do. And we produce more food than ever before. One last question for you, EJ, and I don't know exactly if this is in your strike zone, but I'm getting a lot of calls about it, and I wonder what your sense is about this. There is a kind of war against data centers. And data, as you know, one of the biggest data centers in the world is right out in by Dulles Airport in Northern Virginia. Why are people so afraid of data centers?
Steve, I think it's because they are blaming them for what happened, something actually that happened under Biden, this green energy revolution. Really, it was a de-evolution. What happened was Biden pushed for all of this green energy. His Department of Energy was particularly responsible. So we brought all of this new capacity onto the grid that was wind and solar, which is a much more expensive way of generating electricity, and it's less reliable. So people's electric bills have been going up as a result of the power generation getting. They also imposed natural gas via the Inflation Reduction Act. So even the reliable energy that you have on the grid became more expensive to operate. So again, people's bills went up. Then they look around at these data centers getting put up that are obviously using electricity, and they're blaming them as an increase in demand when the real problem is that supply is not keeping up. But I will say that the data centers that are out by Dulles that you mentioned, Steve, they are paying so much in taxes that it is actually resulting in a slower growth of property taxes for residents in that area. So while their electric bills have gone up because of things like wind and solar, ironically, the data centers are helping to keep their property taxes down.
Yeah, well, a couple points about that. One is our friends at the Institute of Energy Research just put out a study showing that if you have wind and solar mandates, your electric bills are almost double what they are if you don't mandate wind and solar, because wind and solar don't work very well in terms of producing reliable electricity. And, I just find it interesting that people don't like data centers. When people tell me that, I say, well, do you like your cell phone? Oh, yeah, I like my cell phone. Well, guess what? If you don't have a data center, you don't have a cell phone. I mean, people are going to be angry when the cell system goes out and so on.
Well, Steve, 100%. These are things that we need to make the modern world function. Whether it's your cell phone, whether it's AI, which by the way is such a phenomenal tool, and I really hope more people start to use it. I use it all the time. It helps make me more productive. This is what the modern age requires.
There you go. Hey, EJ, thanks so much for joining on a Saturday afternoon. That's EJ Antoni, who's the top economist at Heritage Foundation, a good friend and a good friend of us at Unleash Prosperity. Folks, this is very exciting. My next guest up is going to be the owner and operator of this radio station, John Catsimatidis, who I've twisted his arm to come on and give us a sense of how he thinks things are going on in the world. And so hang on. This will be an exciting segment coming up. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hope you're having a wonderful Easter weekend, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm going to be bringing on my friend and my employer and the guy I admire, who should be the next mayor of New York City or the next governor of New York State, John Catsimatidis. But in the meantime, I wanted to remind you all that we will be taking your questions at the end of the hour on the More Money Show. That is 1-800-848-9222. Don't call in quite yet because we'll stop maybe in about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll take your calls. 1-800-848-9222. On any of the stuff that we've been talking about, the economy, I have a special interest in this issue of what I call our injustice system. Are you afraid of the fact that we've got liberal prosecutors that are coming after us and our only crime is to be supporting Donald Trump? And by the way, I know there are a lot of people who listen to the show don't like Donald Trump. I think we got a third who love him, a third who hate him, and a third in the middle. But I still think justice should be blind. It should not be based on your politics. So I'm very worried about this. I know friends, I know people who are in jail because of their political affiliation with Donald Trump. That was their crime. And I don't think people should be in jail because of their affiliation with Donald Trump. I don't think people should be in jail because of their affiliation with Joe Biden or Barack Obama. It should not, politics should not enter our justice system, but it is. Final thing I wanted to talk to you all about is how willing are you to pay this short-term pain for the long-term gain of what we hope to see at the end of this Iran situation? I'm kind of on the fence of this. I could go either way. I'm uneasy about what's happening in Iran. I'm hoping for a happy ending. I don't know how it's going to end. I'm not a foreign policy or military expert. I'm an economist, but clearly our economy has taken a hit. So my question for you is, are you willing to pay the short-term pain for the long-term gain? I haven't made up my mind. That's why I'm asking you. Okay, so we will be back in about 2 minutes with my good friend John Catsimatidis. This is the More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I love that. I love that quote. I love that president. He did put us on the bestseller list, by the way. That was a book that, Art Laffer and I both wrote called The Trump Economic Miracle. It was a miracle. We've got to return to the miracle. And that's why one of the people I wanted to bring on this afternoon is John Catsimatidis. You know him as the president and CEO of this radio station, among many, many other things. John is one of the political and economic leaders in the city of New York. And by the way, I want to remind you, as soon as I'm done with my segment with John Catsimatidis, the rest of the show will be taking your calls live and in color. 1-800-848-9222 if you'd like to join the conversation. 1-800-848-WABC. My producer says there is one line open if you would like to have your voice heard, because we are freedom of speech radio at WABC. So John Catsimatidis, happy Easter.
Thank you. I actually celebrate my Easter next week, but I celebrate all holidays. I celebrate Passover. I celebrate Catholic Easter. I celebrate Greek Easter. I mean, holidays is the time to be together with family and to enjoy. And I think that's the key thing. And America is the greatest place in the world. And I'm sure I standing next to Donald Trump, he is the one that's going to bring freedom back to the world. And he's the only one that has the courage. And you recognize it economically.
Yes.
I recognize it overall. Freedom to the world. The Europeans, I'm scratching my head. I don't understand what the Europeans are thinking about. Would they rather trust Putin than trust Donald Trump? That's unbelievable. How does Donald Trump said, that's a lot of crap.
You know, I mean, it's crazy. And the fact is that Iran is a terrorist country, and he recognizes that. And Iran, when President Biden gave more money to Iran by raising the price of oil up to $90 to $100 a barrel, and he made Iran rich again. Not only did he raise the price of oil to $90 to $100 a barrel for 4 years, he allowed Iran to go from 300,000 barrels a day that Trump had him limited to 3 million barrels a day. And we made them zillionaires again. And they used that money. Steve, to pay off the Hamas and the Hezbollah and the Houthis. And could you imagine if they had nuclear bombs? Yeah. I mean, don't the Europeans realize this? Even last week when they realized they had some ICBMs that could reach London, that could reach Paris, where are these guys? Where are their brains? I just, they can't hate Trump enough that they're going to give up their own country. And not only that, they've allowed their countries to be invaded. You know what I always say? Immigration, yes. Invasion, no. Yeah, that's for sure. More people. They got more people in their country than French people. They got the UK. Yeah. The UK finally realized that they had a problem when they went from 67% British down to 40%. Nigel Farage doesn't talk about it anymore. He doesn't. That was the real reason for Brexit. They woke up, the British woke up one morning and said, what's happened to our country? God, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. So, by the way, that voice you're hearing is that of John Catsimatidis, who is the owner and operator of this great station. By the way, John, I believe we are probably the only station in America that is on 5 straight hours of live radio on Saturdays, starting 10 to 1 with Larry Kudlow, and then 1 to 3 with more money. It's unbelievable because almost every station it has no live, recording. So that's been a real privilege for me.
Well, I'm glad you're on 1 to 3. I hope you keep that 1 to 3 hours because you said to somebody at the station you want to work less. I think you should work more.
I'm working hard, John, but we'll see. But it's been great. I mean, we've been doing this for
more because you got to get the more money out and you got to get the truth out. And yes, we do. And that's important. It's not just about economy. The economy is very important to all of us. And let me tell you what's happening. The price of oil is going, for the first time ever, WTI, which is American crude oil, went above Brent. And let me tell you something.
Wait, what does that mean? Say that again. I don't understand.
WTI is Western Texas crude oil. Wow. WTI, Western Texas crude oil, went up to $111 on Thursday or Friday, whenever the market was open, and Brent, which is usually $10 higher than WTI, went down to 108. So
what does that mean? What does that mean?
That means something is rotten somewhere. Because there is no shortage in America on oil. There is zero shortage. And I think my personal opinion, and I told that to the president, and you could tell him that too, because you see him more often than I do, is that they're making him look bad. And you know what? You know who's making the money? It's not the gas stations. It's not the refiners.
Yes.
You know who's making the money? It's the crude producers. And you know what the traders are doing to force the crude up? Let's say, and I don't know this for a fact, but this is my opinion, that they're playing ping pong. Now, let me tell you what I mean by playing ping pong.
Okay.
Let's say one of the major oil companies buys 100 million barrels of oil on the market, forces the price of oil up from 95 to 97, and then the next day, the guy he sold it to buys it back for $99. And they play ping pong back and forth. And they're forcing the price of oil up There is zero shortages of oil. And one of your other people that had you had on during the 1 o'clock hour said you talked about shortages. Yeah. The planet Earth makes crude oil by itself.
Yes.
It's not from the dinosaurs. That's a lot of crap. It's not from the dinosaurs. The planet Earth makes the crude oil for the plaques to be able to smoothly interact. And the only time there's a problem is through fracking, when you take out too much crude oil, too much oil out of the ground, then you get earthquakes because they don't have enough oil, and it's happened in Oklahoma. You don't have enough oil for the plaques to move around smoothly. So shortages. Zero shortages.
Yeah. So, John, you are in the oil industry. You are in this industry, right?
For 40 years.
Yeah. So you know the industry as well as anyone. So I've been talking throughout the last couple hours, you're right, about what's happening with energy. You're one of the world's experts on this because you've made money on this industry. So I'm predicting that we're going to see the oil price back down to $60 to $70 a barrel within the next month or so. What say you?
Absolutely correct, because what happens is that under President Biden, you had crude oil at $90 to $100 a barrel for 4 years. And all of a sudden, I was on French television last Sunday. All of a sudden, they're trying to create a panic that, oh my God, it's over $90 for 30 days. I mean, that's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's all a lot of crap. Once the terrorists that President Trump is terrorizing the terrorists. Once they figured out that enough of them have died and the terrorism is dead, then the price of crude oil will go back down to, I would say, a WTI, which is American crude, between $55 and $65 a barrel. And Brent, whatever the price of Brent is going to be, maybe historically it's $10 more than WTI, which is American crude oil versus the European crude oil.
So, John, if you are right, and I think you are, then we're talking about the price of gasoline at the pump sometime in the next month or two getting back down to the $3.50 to $3 a gallon price tag.
When you have all of a sudden, when the oil companies that produce the stuff and the traders that create that price, once they panic, all of a sudden you're going to see it drop.
Yes.
Within 1 day, it'll drop $20 a barrel.
Yeah. So, John, I want to go back to a point you just made because great minds think alike. And, I never could understand why we call oil and gas and coal fossil fuels, because I think this is based on a myth that the energy came from, fossils. That is like dinosaurs.
They came from dinosaurs.
It's ridiculous because, John,
it's like the pyramids. They said that the Jews, the Jewish slaves built the pyramids. No way. No way.
No, that's exactly right. And here's the thing. I want to start a movement. We should stop calling them fossil fuels and call them geological fuels, because the core of the earth is burning hot and that creates energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. And the planet Earth creates the food.
So that means, by the way, this is so important, John, because that means these are not, the planet keeps producing energy, right?
100%.
Yes.
100%.
This is important because.
And they're conning the American people. You remember back in the 1980s, we're going to run out of crude oil. We're going to run out of this. We're going to run out of that.
Big lie.
It's the big lie. It's the same people 500 years ago that they were telling that the earth is flat, and if Columbus goes far enough, he's going to fall off the planet.
Isn't that the truth? It's the same people who said we had a population bomb, and now we have a declining birth rate. Well, John, we got 1 more minute left. What do you have to tell the American people?
Well, me and Larry Kudlow, your buddy, we agree 100%. Buy equities. sell crude short because over the next 30, 60 days, you're going to be 100% right.
Oh, do I love that story. That's John Catsimatidis, folks. He is the owner-operator of this station, does an amazing job. The number one station in America. We will be taking your calls when we come back. We'll be back in 2 minutes. 1-800-848-9222 if you'd like to join the show. And happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Happy Easter, folks. This is the More Money Show. This is economist Steve Moore. Thanks so much for joining this afternoon. We've got about 10 minutes left. We've got 5 callers on the line. By the way, I think we have one open line. If you still want to call in, 1-800-848-9222 is our call-in number. And we're going to go quickly speed round. This is the favorite part of my show, is hearing from you all. So let's start with Tony in New Jersey. Tony, you got 1 minute. What do you got for us?
Hey, Steve, great show. Listen to you every week. Listen, a couple things. One is if the Congress really wanted to, they could pass a law saying that it's against the law of discrimination, political persuasion.
Yes, I love that.
Everything up.
Yes.
That was that was number one.
That's a great idea. No, Tony, hold on, Tony. That is a fantastic idea. It's near and dear to my heart. What I was saying earlier on the show is I think we have a system of injustice, not a justice system in this country, and we put politics in the justice system, and the scales are being tipped based on what party you are. That's not a justice system. Great point, Tony. What's your second point?
Yeah, the other point, John Catsimatidis, man, he is a breath of fresh air.
Isn't he?
He would be awesome as either governor or president.
Yes.
Great guy.
Yes, I could. Tony, thanks for calling. That is a great point. I love John Catsimatidis. He should be running the state. He should be running the city. Boy, what a concept. Having someone who's a businessman who wants to run something and knows how to do it and has a track record for doing it. He's become a billionaire because he's so successful. Now you've got this idiot in the mayor's office who probably couldn't run a 2-car parade, and New York is suffering for it. Okay. Thank you, Tony. Great call. Let's go with George.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for calling.
Okay, so it's my thought. Okay, I believe that the current administration is just not doing enough to explain to the American people the necessity of the war against Iran, and I believe it's much more than safety. It's also economics. The Iranians see exactly what is going on, and they will be using their power to limit oil and other resources, and this would translate to a variety of things, not just the gas in our gas tanks, okay, but variety of other products that are being made. And I'd like to say the last thing here, please, okay? Bad actors such as Iran, and believe me, it's not just Iran using missiles, but they're also using the internet and the variety of social media to get to American people. China, Russia, and some other bad actors, and the administration. It's not enough that the president goes on air once in a while. There has to be a concentrated effort to go and talk to the American people and explain to them exactly what's entailed. And it is not just something in front of your nose. Okay, it's a long-term situation. Thank you.
George, I got to cut you off because we've got a couple more calls. Great points. As you know, I am kind of on the fence on this one. I'm glad to hear. I agree with you. This is an evil regime in Iran. They are killing thousands and thousands and thousands of their own people. My friends on the left who say they're humanitarian, they don't seem to care about the people whose lives have been destroyed by this evil regime there. Whether it's America's responsibility to clean it up, I don't know, but let's at least accept the fact these are really bad people running the Iranian government. Okay, let's see. Who do we have? Larry.
Is this from Newburgh?
You're on, sir.
I'm one of the people who disagrees with you, but I called because I'm in a union and I get an annuity. It'll be a little over $100,000, and I have to take it all at once. And they should change the law so that I don't have to pay 50% tax on that.
Yes.
Because that's a big difference between 50 and 100, and I never hear you talk.
I agree with it. But Larry, you just said that you disagree with me. What do you disagree with me about?
You said you want people to have to work for their benefits. But if you're in the middle of nowhere, you can't get a job or do any volunteer work. I grew up in the sticks, and I know what it's like. And when you're in the middle of nowhere, there's a big difference between being in the city where you walk one block and there's 12 places you can
that's a good point.
Apply for a job.
All I'm saying, Larry, by the way, thank you. Good call. I'm just simply saying that, there is dignity in work, that people should be, if you're going to get money from a business, or if you're going to get money from government, and I don't think people should, because I don't believe in a big government. But if you do, then you should have to work for it. This idea of just sending checks to people for their health care, for their child care, for their, to put the food on their table. I mean, I don't want people to go hungry, but if you're going to get that assistance from government folks, I feel very strongly there should be work requirements. If you're able-bodied, you should be, the government's not going to let you go hungry, but you're going to have to work for it. I work for it. You all work for it. Why shouldn't everybody have to work for the benefits they get? I think do we still have Eduardo on?
Steve, good afternoon.
Hi, you're on, sir.
Yeah, I want to comment that we need to improve on the job numbers. It was good getting the 178, but I think we got to get into the 200s. We got to get more of these cases with fraud, like California.
Yes.
And I think we're going to be fine. Gas prices will eventually go down.
Yes, I agree, sir. And when you talked about fraud, what do you mean?
The hospice care. Remember they had those busts in California?
Oh, yeah, it's outrageous. It's out of control.
Yeah, right?
I completely agree with you. I believe, Eduardo, great call. Thank you so much. I hate to cut you off, but we're kind of coming to the end. I believe that Donald Trump is right when he says there is $1 trillion of fraud in the federal government. $1 trillion. That's one with 12 zeros. $1 trillion, by the way, is $1 million. And this money, it's happening all over the country, but especially in blue states. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Minneapolis. It is happening in Los Angeles. It is happening in my home state of Illinois, my hometown of Chicago. And by the way, this fraud that is happening in these programs, it happens because the mayors and the people who run these cities and these states, they want the fraud. They want the money from Washington, D.C. to flow into their state. They view it as a stimulus. They think fraud stimulates their local economy as if money grows on trees. That's their attitude. And when you have these sting operations where people are going in and finding out, hey, gee, there's nobody in this daycare center, and yet we're paying them millions of dollars. Or, where did the food stamps go? People are trading in their food stamps for beer and wine and drugs. I mean, this system is rotten to the core, and it has to be cleaned up. And Trump has, and by the way, it's not just Donald Trump, it's also Elon Musk with Doge, but he got so frustrated with it, that he just basically, he did save the government hundreds of billions of dollars, but that only skimmed the cream. It only skimmed the top of the amount of out of control fraud, abuse in our government. And I find it outrageous, folks. I know we're coming to the end here, and my producers are shouting in my ear, but we cannot accept this. And if you get rid of these criminals, and not only should we get the money back that these people are stealing from you and me, it's no different from if somebody comes up to you on the streets of your town and puts a gun to your head and takes money from your wallet. That's what these people are doing. And not only should we recapture that money from these criminals, because they are criminals. When you steal, that's a crime. Not only should they have to give that money back, in my humble opinion, folks, but we should be prosecuting these people because they are criminals, and stop prosecuting people because they support Joe Biden or they support this person or that person, and put people who are stealing the money from our federal fisc. We have a $40 trillion national debt, $40 trillion. And one of the reasons when I first came to Washington it was $1 trillion. Now it's $40 trillion. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care about the corruption. And I'm here to tell you, I care about it. And I think you do too, because you wouldn't be listening to the show if you didn't. Hey, we had a great show today, folks. I am so proud of being able to be in front of this microphone every Saturday afternoon. John Catsimatidis is so kind to let me do this. It is the thrill of the week for me. Hope you have a very wonderful holiday, and we will be back. Same bat time, same bat channel on the More Money Show. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com.